he's saying the Prime Minister should step down. What does that say about the Prime Minister's leadership?
Look, I'll speak for myself. I'm a member of his cabinet. Obviously, we support him. I think the work that we're trying to do to help Canadians is really the main focus right now. We're up against somebody who's campaigning on promises to deny access to free birth control for women, who won't even get a security clearance to look into allegations about his own caucus members being engaged in foreign interference, who's opposing policies that are going to help build more homes. I know which side I'm on.
How can you do that work when half the people say
your colleagues about wanting the Prime Minister to step down? How does the Prime Minister continue to lead the party into the next election when there are MPs openly speaking about lack of faith in his leadership?
Well, I think these are not easy times to lead. I don't know anybody who's having an easy time anywhere leading. But the Prime Minister has my full confidence and the full confidence of most of my colleagues. And I think, you know, it's an easy time to kind of, you know, believe there are magic solutions. And Canadians are going to go through the same kind of thing, I think, whenever the next election comes. You know, you can listen that, you know, that a slogan, just the slogan can fix all of your problems. That's all you need is a magic wand. And that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in a new magical leader. It doesn't exist in a new magical slogan. These are difficult times, and they require careful deliberation every day, an enormous amount of hard work, and taking in all the stress in the world and trying to hold people. And that's not easy, and I think the Prime Minister is doing it well.
What do you think of this letter that some Liberal MPs allegedly are getting engaged in pledging to ask the Prime Minister to lead this resolution? What do you think of that approach?
I think, you know, one of the things I love about my caucus, and it's not, I was elected 20 years ago to this caucus, you know, is that it's full of opinions, and they're welcome to share them, and I think that's a positive thing. I think that's strong. I think having a debate as a party about our future and where we should go is something that I welcome. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a sign of a strong Democratic caucus. I haven't seen the letter. I guess they know my opinion on it, so I didn't get a copy of it. But I think, you know, these conversations around how we deal with the difficult times that we're in and how we try to find answers and how we try to lead are totally appropriate. So I don't mind my colleagues having these conversations at all.
But I have to say, the fact that you're saying right now only some or not even, can you say all of your caucus has confidence in the Prime Minister? I mean, how does that show that you have a strong caucus? It shows that there's a lot of division.
Well, but I mean, this is just an honest reflection of what's happening in every caucus at all times. I mean, I think that I don't look. If you guys watch, you know, different people come by in different political parties, and you know that some of them are closer than others to the current leadership or the current policies. There's always a situation where people don't have their perfect situation. That's being in a party. Like, you know, we have to be a team. So some people in the team are always going to be a little bit more or less happy with what's going on or what the situation is. We happen to be in a caucus where we're more open about those differences. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a positive thing. I think that gives us the opportunity to have real reflections, including asking the hard questions of when we're dealing with a world as complex and difficult as this, what's the right approach? And so I welcome those conversations.
Who publicly call for the Prime Minister to resign should be expelled from caucus?
No, I think that, you know, I think that if you don't, ultimately, if they present a different view of our path forward, at some point in time, you got to say, okay, well, we're continuing this way. Your other colleagues don't agree with you. And then they make a choice about whether or not they want to continue on that basis and continue fighting into the next election. I mean, at a certain point in time, this has to resolve itself. I mean, I think that those conversations are positive and good. But at a certain point in time, you got to wrap it up and you got to come to a determination. And either we're going forward or you're going forward with us, or you make a decision that you're doing something else. And that's fair, too.
Should it be put to a vote? Should it be put to a vote?
Well, it doesn't need to be because, I mean, look, every single one of us is expressing an opinion, and caucus, just like the process of governing, is about building consensus. And if that consensus is not present, it's pretty evident. So, you know, in my view, and of course the people that I'm talking to, have confidence in the Prime Minister. I think he's somebody who led us through incredibly difficult times. He takes punches like nobody I've ever seen. This is a guy who gets attacked relentlessly, you know, and blamed for every problem of the world. And, you know, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think people want people to take responsibility. I think people want people to stand up and say, it doesn't matter if it's municipal or provincial or federal, we're going to try to fix it. We're going to try to get in there. And that's been his theory. This is a guy who's taken responsibility for everything, tried to find solutions to every problem. And yes, right now that means everybody's blaming him. But I think ultimately, if you ask the question, if all you're left with is Polyev, and who has no ideas, who's got nothing but slogans and promises that are completely vacuous with nothing underneath them, what does that actually mean for the country? And what does it actually mean to get rid of somebody who every day stands up and is willing to take the punches and take the anxiety and the hurt of the nation and hold it and take those punches? That's somebody I admire. That's somebody who I think can lead us in times like that. Somebody who has that kind of personal fortitude to take the attacks that he's taking and keep moving forward and keep doing the right thing for the country. He's got my enormous respect and admiration for him. Thanks everybody.
Premièrement, j'aimerais féliciter Susan Holt, qui est la première femme première ministre libérale élue au Nouveau-Brunswick. Donc, bonne nouvelle. Félicitations à Susan et à tous les députés qui ont été élus. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate Susan Holt for being the first woman and Liberal Premier of New Brunswick, and congratulations to her and all her team. On the foreign affairs side, of course, I can take all your questions. Au niveau des questions sur les affaires étrangères, ça me fait plaisir de répondre à vos questions. Et aussi, dernier point, au niveau du Liban, on a encore un autre vol de prévu avec 50 personnes à bord. Donc, les départs assistés se poursuivent. So, on Lebanon, we still have another 50 seats that are confirmed on a flight leaving Beirut. And therefore, the assisted departure is continuing. So I can answer your question.
Secretary Trudeau about how to handle the revolt of potentially up to 40 MPs.
One thing is clear is I won't tell you, and I will go and have these discussions in cabinet.
India, since coming out with the allegations there was CNP, have you seen any change in tone from India? And what do you think of the way that they've responded to the U.S. allegations in comparison to the Canadian allegations?
So when it comes to India, of course, I've been in contact with my counterpart, and we stand by our allegations. And not only that, I think the RCMP did an important, an extraordinary measure by explaining to the public how much the Indian agents here in Canada were involved in the harassment, in the intimidation, in the extortion, and potentially also killing of Canadians. And that's why we expulse Indian diplomats. And my job is to continue to engage India while making sure that they're held to account, and I'll continue to do that.
Secretary Blinken is on a visit to the Middle East right now. Are you optimistic that this can make any inroads for a ceasefire, and is Canada playing any role in that?
Well, of course, it is important that we continue to engage into diplomacy, and I'm always happy when I see my colleague and friend, Secretary Blinken, going to the Middle East to push for a ceasefire. This is a ceasefire that is not only supported by Canada, but also by the entire UN Security Council, including the U.S. So we'll continue to advocate for that, and we'll continue to advocate for the release of hostages. As for myself, I will be heading later this week to the conference in Paris on Lebanon, because I think it's important that we address this.
Pourquoi n'imposez-vous pas de sanctions à Israël?
Ben, premièrement, nous avons déjà imposé des sanctions à des colons extrémistes et nous sommes toujours prêts à imposer plus de sanctions. Nous avons également annoncé clairement qu'au niveau des armes et des composantes d'armes, il n'y aurait pas d'armes ou de composantes d'armes canadiennes qui se retrouveraient à Gaza. Et depuis ce temps-là, ce que nous avons vu, c'est que d'autres partenaires du G7 ont annoncé les mêmes mesures.
L'assassinat, Israël a réussi à assassiner la tête dirigeante du Hamas. Mme Harris, aux États-Unis, disait que ça devrait être un point tournant. J'aimerais vous entendre là-dessus. Parce que ce matin, Israël bombardait encore Beyrouth.
Bien, notre position est la même. Il nous faut un cessez-le-feu pour Gaza. Il faut absolument que, justement, non seulement il y ait un cessez-le-feu, mais que les otages soient retournés à la maison. Il faut, bien entendu, ramener la paix et la stabilité au Moyen-Orient. Et ça inclut également le Liban. Et d'ailleurs, j'irai à Paris plus tard cette semaine et j'aurai l'occasion de rencontrer et d'avoir un dîner avec le ministre des Affaires étrangères de la France pour que le Canada puisse travailler à ramener la paix, particulièrement non seulement au Moyen-Orient, mais aussi au Liban.
I can tell you that, having heard from so many LGBTQ2 people across the country, that trans kids and the 2S LGBTQI community in New Brunswick is sighing a big sigh of relief right now. Let this be a cautionary tale to other premiers who think that they can play to their base on the backs of kids and on the backs of minority communities. You just shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go there. When it comes to the Prime Minister, you've all heard me. unwavering support for the Prime Minister. I fought 3 elections with him. I intend to fight a 4th election with him. And anybody who's ever bet against Justin Trudeau, sorry they made that bet the next day.
What do you think of the letter and the dissent?
Look, have you seen the letter? I haven't seen the letter. What's this supposed letter? I haven't seen the letter. I've not seen the letter, and I've not signed the letter. Full stop.
MPs have said they signed it. MPs have said they signed it. Are you saying it's not real?
I haven't seen a letter. Have you seen a letter?
But your cabinet
But I've not talked to anybody. I've not talked to anybody who's actually seen the letter. Here, let me ask you this. Let me answer your question. J'ai pas signé la lettre. Je n'ai pas vu la lettre. Et j'ai entièrement confiance dans le Premier ministre. J'ai fait 3 élections à ses côtés. On va faire une 4e ensemble. Et si on parie contre le Premier ministre, on est vraiment déçus le lendemain.
So you don't how is it going to be a bust, according to you?
No. Caucus meetings are never a bust. Like, we get to all come together, put all of our issues on the table. It's why we have caucus meetings for 2 hours. Look, I think it's a moment where caucus is going to express itself. The Prime Minister is going to listen, and we're going to get through this as a team.
How does he get through it? How does he get
Bloc ultimatum pretty much dead.
Pardon?
Is the Bloc ultimatum going anywhere?
Well, that's for the Bloc to answer. We are certainly focused on making the government to work for Canadians. That's exactly what people expect, and that's what we are going to keep doing.
Is there any wiggle room on the letter?
Est-ce que les députés qui ont signé la lettre sont des peureux, comme ils n'en parlent pas publiquement?
Ben, écoutez, de ce que je sache, personne n'a vu cette lettre et peu de députés en ont parlé. Alors on verra si cette lettre existe. Ce qui est clair, par contre, c'est que tous les députés veulent et doivent continuer à travailler à tous les jours pour se battre pour les concitoyens qui les ont élus. On sait qu'en 2024, gouverner le Canada, c'est difficile et c'est dur aussi pour les députés. C'est pareil partout sur la planète. Donc c'est une source.
La façon que c'est un peu secret, est-ce que vous pensez que ça manque de courage de la part des députés?
Ben, ce serait aux députés concernés de répondre à cette question. Moi, ce que je dis, c'est qu'au caucus du Québec, certainement, les députés sont conscients que leur job, c'est de travailler pour les gens qui les ont élus.
Mais juste pour revenir sur la question du Bloc, l'échéance arrive. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Par exemple, on avait l'impression que vous pensiez peut-être à bonifier le supplément du revenu garant, des choses comme ça. Est-ce qu'il y a des nouveautés là-dessus?
Bien, nous, on n'a pas mis de date d'échéance au travail qu'on doit faire pour les Québécois et pour les Canadiens. Ben, le Bloc, on leur parle. Je sais que le Bloc ne veut pas le dire officiellement, là, mais on discute avec les députés du Bloc, comme on discute avec les députés du NPD. Les députés du Bloc et du NPD, beaucoup plus que les députés conservateurs, veulent que le gouvernement canadien soit au service des Québécois. Les députés conservateurs sont dans un autre mode de pensée. Ils veulent absolument déclencher les élections le plus rapidement possible parce qu'ils ont peur de ce qu'on sait s'en venir. Les nouvelles économiques sont très bonnes. Les taux d'intérêt qui chutent, le taux d'inflation qui chute, le chômage qui chute. Ça, c'est de très bonnes nouvelles pour les Canadiens, mais de mauvaises nouvelles pour les conservateurs. Alors, on sait c'est quoi leur stratégie. Ils veulent accélérer le plus possible le déclenchement de ces élections. Je crois que le Bloc, certainement le NPD, sont dans un autre état d'esprit.
Mais est-ce que ça avance, les discussions? Parce que ça fait des semaines que vous dites qu'il y a des discussions, point. Donc, on a l'impression que ça avance pas nécessairement, que ça piétine. Est-ce que ça avance?
Bien, nous, on ne s'est pas fixé de date d'échéance à nos discussions avec le Bloc et le NPD. Ce serait au Bloc à qui on pourrait demander pourquoi il y a une date à partir de laquelle ils vont arrêter de travailler pour les Québécois. Nous, on va être là pour les Québécois aussi longtemps qu'on aura la chance d'être au gouvernement.
Est-ce qu'il y a une discussion concrète?
Well, the Bloc has fixed a timeline, a deadline, after which it would not be working for Quebecers anymore. We haven't done that. We are mindful of the fact that, yes, there are things that we would like to expedite, and we're willing to see how that could happen. But there are things we need to do beyond that, an artificial deadline for Canadians and Quebecers in particular to be served, to be well served by the government of Canada.
OK, thank you. Merci. Commentaire sur le cas de Bedford et le message de M. Legault ce matin là, qui fait un appel à l'importance de la laïcité dans les écoles. Vous en pensez quoi de cette situation?
Bien, écoutez, on parle du bien-être des enfants qui, dans certains cas, sont déjà vulnérables. C'est pour ces enfants, c'est pour ces écoliers qu'il faut se battre. Ce qu'on croit comprendre, c'est que le gouvernement québécois, avait tous les outils pour défendre le bien-être et la dignité de ces enfants, qu'il y a des organisations, des gens qui n'ont pas fait leur travail, mais c'est au gouvernement du Québec de régler ce problème, ce gros problème, parce que c'est la compétence du gouvernement du Québec.
Le gouvernement du Québec
Québec ouvre la porte à renforcer davantage les paramètres de laïcité. Est-ce que ça vous préoccupe particulièrement?
Bien, c'est au gouvernement du Québec de voir ce qui est dans l'intérêt de faire pour défendre les élèves du Québec. C'est de la compétence du gouvernement du Québec. Ceci étant dit, ce qu'on entend, et on sait qu'il y a plus d'informations qui doivent être fournies, ce qu'on entend de manière préliminaire, c'est que des informations à l'effet que certaines personnes, certains groupes, dont les syndicats, n'ont pas fait leur job. Alors, mais c'est pas au gouvernement canadien de rappeler à ces gens à quel... Donc, je pense que...
I have absolute confidence in the Prime Minister.
What do you think of those MPs that are signing this letter and not coming out?
I'm focused on the work that we need to do.
But does that bother you?
Yes, I support the Prime Minister.
What's your message to your colleagues? How do you come back, though? How do you come back from 20 to 40 people expressing
I don't know the number.
confidence?
I don't know any numbers.
Does the number matter as much as the expression of a large group of people within the caucus?
Well, I think they have to express themselves to his face, like I've said, and not do it sort of in hushed tones. And
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de leur démarche?
How does he get over that? How does he come back to lead a united caucus if that many?
well, I think what you'll see is that the vast majority of caucus and cabinet, the entirety of cabinet's behind him.
Qu'est-ce que la démarche, la façon de faire, c'est secret, que les gens ils veulent pas parler publiquement de la chose?
Vous devriez peut-être en rentrer en politique pour savoir comment ça marche au caucus. Mais d'habitude, c'est en privé. Et on s'attend à ce que les gens se disent les vraies affaires et devant le premier ministre. Puis je pense que c'est quelque chose que le premier ministre respecterait.
Est-ce qu'il y a un manque de courage quelque part dans la
Moi, je pense que si les gens se disent des choses en coulisses, en cachette, tandis qu'ils sont des collègues, ça manque de courage.
Can you win re-election under his leadership, though, and continue all the work you've been doing for the last 9 years?
Absolutely. But it's up to Canadians to decide. But you have to prove it to the Canadians. And any minute spent on this garbage is a minute that's not spent on Pierre Poilievre and what he wants to do to this country, and I think that's very dangerous.
Mais est-ce que M. Miller, est-ce qu'une partie de vous, parce qu'il y a des députés dont les sièges sont en danger, est-ce qu'une partie de vous comprend un peu cette démarche?
Mais ils devraient aller travailler leur comté. Puis évidemment, ça leur prend des munitions, mais c'est des munitions qui vont se développer en privé, puis un travail qui va se faire en privé dans l'enceinte du caucus, puis pas sur la place publique.
Mais dans le contexte politique, qu'est-ce que ça fait à votre parti, ce genre de
je l'ai dit très publiquement que chaque minute qu'on perd sur ça, c'est une minute qu'on perd sur l'emphase qu'on doit mettre sur les politiques destructives de Pierre Poilievre.
En tant que député de Montréal, vous pensez quoi de ce qui se passe à l'école Belfort, et aussi la tentative du gouvernement de revenir à la charge avec la laïcité pour répondre à ça?
Bien, on est le pays, je pense, le plus laïque au monde. Et de deux, c'est clair que le système d'éducation publique doit se faire en toute laïcité. Et ce qui s'est passé à Bedford, évidemment, c'est inacceptable.
What lesson did the Liberals take from the results in New Brunswick?
No follow-up?
Oui, j'en aurais, parce que je voudrais savoir, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de M. Legault, M. Paul Saint-Pierre-Plamondon, qui veulent quand même récupérer ça pour dire on va pousser peut-être un peu plus loin la loi 21.
Je pense que les Québécois voient très bien ce qui se passe avec ça. Puis, la réalité, c'est que le système d'éducation publique au Québec, depuis fort longtemps, est laïque et doit rester laïque. Essayons pas de blâmer la provenance, l'origine des gens qui sont là, honnêtement.
What lesson did the federal Liberals take from the results in New Brunswick and BC?
Glad we won in New Brunswick.
Ces défis et des prochaines étapes. Et pour moi, cette nomination-là, ça représente une première étape dans tout le travail qu'on doit accomplir pour assurer la pérennité de CBC Radio-Canada. Just in English. So this morning, for me, the big news is, of course, the nomination of Marie-Philippe Bouchard as the next CEO for CBC Radio-Canada. She's an excellent candidate that really worked her entire career into public service media. She knows the reality of CBC Radio-Canada, having worked there for almost 30 years. She's currently the CEO for TV5 Québec Canada, which is another public service media. And I'm really happy about this nomination. And for me, this is the first piece of a broader work that we need to achieve to ensure the sustainability and the future of CBC Radio.
Est-ce que vous êtes satisfaite du travail de Mme Tate?
Ben, Madame Tête a relevé des défis importants dans un moment où CBC Radio-Canada, comme tous les autres médias, traverse une crise importante, une baisse de revenus. Elle a accompli des choses extraordinaires, notamment avec, je pense, la couverture par CBC Radio-Canada des Jeux olympiques et des Jeux paralympiques qui a vraiment réuni tout le pays dans un moment qui était très difficile. Et maintenant, moi, je me concentre sur l'avenir parce qu'il doit y avoir... Écoutez, moi, je suis tournée vers l'avenir. J'ai nommé la prochaine personne qui allait relever le défi d'assurer un avenir périn et intéressant pour CBC Radio-Canada, c'est Marie-Philippe Bouchard. Les prochaines étapes, pour moi, c'est vraiment de continuer le travail pour, je vous l'avais déjà dit, pour travailler sur la question du financement de CBC Radio-Canada, de sa gouvernance et de son mandat plus largement.
How should the Prime Minister and members of the cabinet deal with this revolt by a number of MPs against his continued leadership?
Well, first of all, the entire cabinet and myself, for sure, are 100% behind the Prime Minister, who's led this country through difficult times in the past few years, and I know he's still the leader for the Liberal Party. I think it's time for the caucus and for us all to really think about Canadians and use our efforts to make sure that we address the affordability crisis and the preoccupations of Canadians during this time. It's also a good time for us to get ready for next election.
On connaît pas leur nom, ils veulent pas nécessairement sortir publiquement. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça?
Les discussions au caucus vont rester au caucus en ce qui me concerne, mais je crois que c'est important pour nous, comme parti, et comme gouvernement, de se concentrer sur les attentes des Canadiens dans cette période où les gens sont préoccupés par le coût de la vie. Puis on a la Chambre à faire fonctionner, on a des dossiers importants. Puis pour tout le caucus libéral, on doit se concentrer d'abord et avant tout sur les Canadiens.
Mais rien fonctionne. I absolutely support the Prime Minister.
Have you signed the letter?
I support the Prime Minister. I'm heading into a cabinet meeting. He's the leader of the government. I'm part of that government. I support the Prime Minister. We're going
Est-ce que vous pensez que les députés sont des peureux? Est-ce que vous pensez que ces députés qui ont signé sont des peureux?
Sorry, may I ask you, what is your response to Sean Casey, your colleague who's publicly called for Trudeau to step down?
Well, look, I mean, the Liberal Party is a big tent. We often have different perspectives. I know Sean very well. He was my parliamentary secretary when I was Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, and I have a lot of respect for Sean. He has a perspective. I don't think it's a perspective that's shared by the vast majority of caucus, but it's an important, thing for us to talk about, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it tomorrow.
Do you think you could be on the same team even when he's saying, I don't want the same leader? Is he on part of the Liberal team if he's trying to oust the leader you currently support?
Sure he is. I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a leadership race, you have multiple candidates. The winning candidate needs to get 50% plus one. Does that mean that they actually don't have the support of 49% and that they actually should, at the end of the day, we will have a robust debate. We will come out, with, in my view, support for the Prime Minister to move forward with the election.
If dozens of MPs are signing a letter telling the Prime Minister to step down, how can he survive that?
Well, as I say, the Liberal Party is a big tent. We have robust conversations, as we will in caucus. We're not a bunch of robots like Mr. Poilievre's axe the tax, build the homes, ride the donkeys that you see in question period. And it's important to have debates. At this point in time, clearly in the public opinion polls, we are not leading. There is concern on the part of members of caucus. It's important we have that conversation.
Est-ce que la réponse de M. Wilkinson là-dessus, est-ce que vous avez vu la lettre?
Non, non.
Mais qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la démarche de vos collègues, de ces collègues-là?
C'est quelque chose qui est important d'avoir les voix, d'avoir la conversation. Et demain, nous allons avoir, je crois, cette conversation. Mais le Parti libéral, c'est un parti dans laquelle on peut avoir des conversations comme ça, c'est important.
Est-ce que ces conversations-là doivent se faire en privé ou est-ce qu'ils ne devraient pas avoir le courage, ces députés-là, mutins, de se présenter face à découvert devant les caméras, dire c'est nous et nous souhaitons le départ de Justin Trudeau?
Oui, je crois que c'est important d'avoir la conversation. Je ne connais pas exactement qui ou le nombre ou les choses comme ça, mais je suis très ouvert d'écouter et d'avoir le débat et la conversation. Merci beaucoup.
So what do you make of the dissent then? If we're going to see MPs
This
done-
is, listen, this is...
You don't think it's real?
This is a large tent. It's not that it's not real. It's a large tent, and people are entitled to their opinions. But I just gave you mine. And mine is that I support this Prime Minister unequivocally.
Do you think he'll stay on then after tomorrow?
I have no idea. I would think so. He says that he is staying. He says he's not going anywhere. But again, I leave that up to him. What I will tell you is that he has my support. Thank you so much.
Do you think that the people who want Mr. Trudeau to leave should be more vocal, like just put their face in front of the camera and say, this is us and this is what we want to do? Do you think it's cowardly what they're doing?
Ms. Hutchings, do you
I
support the
wouldn't
Prime
call
Minister?
it cowardly.
Yes,
no.
I do.
Cowardly is a big word to use. I wouldn't call it cowardly. But as I said, different people have different opinions. I respect various opinions, but I'm here to give you mine, and that is that I unequivocally support this Prime Minister.
Do you think
Thanks
you
so
can win
much.
the next election with him at the top?
Absolutely.
La prorogation, est-ce que vous écartez toujours la possibilité de proroger? Puis pouvez-vous faire le point sur des négociations avec le Bloc québécois?
Écarter, ça veut dire quoi?
Ben, ça veut dire que vous dites non à la
Ah
prorogation.
oui.
OK, donc c'est toujours
C'est
non.
toujours non.
OK.
Oui, et bien sûr, je continue les discussions avec toutes les partis d'opposition, incluant le Bloc.
Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions peut-être pour adopter une motion de closure pour ramener les travaux à l'ordre du jour normalement?
Il y a plusieurs discussions sur la table avec tous les partis à ce moment.
Mais est-ce qu'une motion?
In which the government will give the documents over to the House of Commons as it's been voted?
So as I have been very clear, the government has provided thousands of pages of documents. They comply with the charter requirements of the government. The Conservatives are pursuing, their own political partisan vendetta. And as we've heard from expert after expert, including the law clerk yesterday, who raised the fact that he shared the concerns raised by the RCMP and the Auditor General by what the Conservatives are doing right now. So, we will continue to stand up for the rights of Canadians, respect due process of the police, and ensure that this, place remains one where democracy is upheld despite what the Conservatives are doing.
De façon rationnelle que c'est pratiquement impossible que le gouvernement Trudeau respecte le soi-disant ultimatum du Bloc québécois à ce point-ci.
Nous continuons les discussions avec toutes les parties, incluant le Bloc québécois.
So you're not going to give over the documents, you'll let Parliament be in nothing mode until the end of the year?
Can we ask you about child welfare?
Yes, I'd love to talk about child welfare. Let's talk about something real.
Do you think that this deal could have been done differently? Waiving settlement privileges, First Nations could have been more informed along the way. What could have been done better in this case?
We've been negotiating, we actually started the final settlement agreement almost 3 years ago. There was an agreement in principle, and then all of the parties resumed the negotiations over the last two and a half years. 2 of the 3 litigants, as you know, are really disappointed with the outcome of the vote, and the AFN was, as you could see by the results, divided in terms of how to proceed. Obviously, I've been reviewing their deliberations about how to proceed, and they're talking about the ways that AFN needs to strengthen its approach to make sure that all voices from all regions are heard. Certainly that's important work for them, and I know the National Chief is listening very closely. And on my side, I'm currently sort of just analyzing next steps for the government, but I want everybody to know that we remain committed to making sure that child and family services reform continues.
Given what you've heard at the AFN, how will that inform your next steps approach to this?
Well, I mean, there were 3 litigants, the AFN, Caring Society, the AFN, the Anishinaabe Nation, and the Chiefs of Ontario. And so, it's important that all parties work together with full comprehension of what their members would like. And so, as you know, Anishinaabe Nation and the Chiefs of Ontario fairly loudly endorsed the agreement. AFN did not. So it's really important that AFN has a clear message coming back to the government about how they want to proceed as well. We'll be waiting to hear from them, but also looking at every option that we can to make sure that we can continue forward.
And now under their caucus leader? How are you feeling heading into that caucus meeting?
Fine. I'm fine. Listen, this is just part.
Is there the lack of courage from the MPs who signed this letter but are not saying publicly their names?
I'm not
Mr.
going to
Miller said
speculate.
something.
I'm not going to speculate about the courage of my colleagues. I think that a healthy caucus has difficult conversations. That's how decisions are made in this country. Whether we're debating in the House of Commons or talking about it in caucus, this is part of governing. This is part of being a country. So I'm comfortable with difficult conversations, or else I wouldn't be doing this 9 years later. That's just part of politics. As a matter of fact, my son once said, in politics, basically every conversation is difficult after about a week on the doors. And so that's the nature of...
continue as leader if he's got 20 to 40 MPs.
That is a decision for the Prime Minister, but I can tell you that I can't do this kind of work without the confidence of the Prime Minister committed to reconciliation. Thank you very much.
Was Trudeau's leadership discussed in that meeting?
It was a good discussion, but it's a cabinet meeting, so confidential. A very good discussion, very positive.
On a eu une
très bonne discussion, c'est tout positif. Merci.
Merci.
I think it's important that we focus on Canadians. I think it's important that we focus on what matters for people on their day-to-day lives.
Is there a plan to deal with it tomorrow?
There's an absolute plan to have important discussions, and that's what we should be having.
What kind of message did the Prime Minister give to you today?
He is leading us into the next election to lead Canadians, and I am proud to be by his side. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the plan to deal with the caucus revolt tomorrow?
I'm not aware of a caucus revolt. We are going to have an important conversation with our people today. We just had a really productive discussion about some of the concerns that we have heard from our colleagues, and I think tomorrow will be a really good opportunity for a conversation.
You don't want to call
it
a revolt then, but there are 20 to 40 MPs who are expressing non-confidence. So how are you going to?
Tanya, I have not seen a letter, and I've not heard that directly. Tomorrow we're going to have an important conversation.
Forget about a letter. If you have that many MPs concerned about the Prime Minister's leadership, how do you address that?
By listening to each other, and I think there'll be a good opportunity for that tomorrow.
What's the Prime Minister's attitude right now, sir? How's he doing? What's the Prime Minister's attitude right now in talking about that?
He's very focused on the work that we are doing and the work that we have yet to do, and he's very, very positive, and his team is with him.
It's the 10th anniversary of the shooting on Parliament Hill, and another gentleman tried to bust in the West Bloc entrance today. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, we're going over, I'll be at the National Memorial later on this afternoon. We're laying a wreath in acknowledgement of Nathan Cirillo, who lost his life 10 years ago today. I think that it's still a serious concern with what we're seeing with some of the radicalization and extremism, and security of this very important people's place is paramount. And the people that come here to work need to know that they can come here safely. And so, we'll certainly reflect on lessons that were learned 10 years ago and the work that we still have to do.
Was the case today radicalization?
Again, I don't have any information on what happened this morning, but certainly when Corporal Cirillo and Patrice Vincent and Saint-Jean Cirichalou lost his life 10 years ago, that certainly was a matter of violent extremism, and so I think a lot of lessons have been learned. We still have to make sure that we remain vigilant here.
Are you still seeing what the Prime Minister?
How do you feel about the caucus meeting tomorrow? Are you confident that there's a plan to deal with the dissent in the caucus?
Well, just like any other caucus meeting, I will attend, and I look forward to good discussions among colleagues on issues that are important to Canadians. What's that? Well, look, I approach it like any other caucus meeting to talk about issues that are important to Canadians.
Do you detect his mood? Is he worried?
Look, at the end of the day, I'm approaching tomorrow's caucus meeting just like any other caucus meeting where we talk about issues that are important to Canadians.
And it's not any other caucus meeting.
That's my approach.
Who have allegedly signed this letter? Do you have a message to them?
I'm not involved in any of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Focusing on the important things that Canadians want us to focus. Just be careful. We don't want to lose you.
Well, so stand and talk to me then, and don't make me run
but
after you.
I have to go eat. I'm a guy at 54.
How do you push back tomorrow against the
No, I'd say we had a very good cabinet meeting focusing on the important things that Canadians want us to focus on. It was a very good meeting. Trust me,
but why
I've been
did
here
it
for
kick
10
you out?
years.
Why are you
But it's good. There's a lot of things that
2 hours
Canadians
late?
care about. They care about immigration. They care about inflation. They care about cost of living. That's the thing we're talking about. That's what Canadians focus about. For sure. I'll see you back. I have to grab something to eat. Well, we had an important cabinet meeting, as we should. We're here to deliver for Canadians, so that's why. So it was a very good meeting.
Do you think your caucus is unified right now?
We'll have a discussion with our folks tomorrow, but like I said, today was a very good meeting. I know you're all here and wondering, but that was a very good meeting. We have a lot of things to deliver, and that's why I was rushing. I was just grabbing lunch.
Did you encourage the Prime Minister? Did you encourage the Prime Minister to stay on as leader?
No, and I would say today.
Why didn't you
but
encourage
today is about the business of Canadians of Canada. So they had a very good meeting. And
but you just said you didn't encourage the Prime Minister. Yeah, okay.
So repeat what you...
Yeah, so listen to my question. I asked you, did you encourage the Prime Minister to stay on as leader? And you said no.
Oh, sorry. I misunderstood your question.
Do you want to be leader?
Nah, I misunderstood your question.
That's why I'm giving you a second chance here. Why did you not encourage the Prime Minister to stay on as leader?
So the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the leader of the Liberal Party. And the Prime Minister is going to lead the Liberal Party in the next election. That's very simple.
Monsieur Champagne, est-ce que vous avez l'impression que les
and I've run many times.
How are you going to run?
Can we bring you over here? Well, as I always said, I'm preparing for the next election always. And that means working for the constituents of Cardigan, and I am continuing to do that every day.
And how do you think that the Prime Minister should handle the dissenters in the caucus who want him to leave?
Oh, well, he's quite capable of handling anybody in all issues, I'm sure, in caucus, has for the last 9 years, and I'm sure he will.
You know, if you forgive me, your answer to whether or not you are running again is not completely saying you are running again. You're saying
isn't it? Well, I've said it for a number of years.
You intend to run? Have you got the nomination, in other words?
Well, people have been pretty generous. They've nominated me 11 times, and I'm hopeful they will again.
Your colleague Sean Casey says that in PEI people want the Prime Minister to step down.
I don't hear that in my riding, but simply all I can report is what I hear from my constituents.
Which is?
What are you hearing? Oh, just that, we're working on issues all the time. In our riding, we work together. Like, no matter what we're doing, we have some difficulties. We work together and try to resolve them, and that's the way we've worked for over 30 years, and that's the way we'll continue to work.
So what do you think about the vocal minority, if it is a minority, that wants the town to...
Well, of course, I'm not sure what it is, really, until something develops, I know, wait till see what will happen.
What do you mean? You're not sure what it is?
Neither are you. Do you know who was involved?
I don't, but I'm not in your caucus, and so presumably some of your caucus colleagues have talked to you about, their concerns. And do you share the concerns of some of those people who question whether he should stay?
I'm not sure what their concerns
are.
are.
Do you agree with Mr. Casey?
No, I do not find that constituents in my riding are quite pleased with the Prime Minister and all the programs we've put in place, like the dental program, child tax credit, many things that help families live a better life. And in fact, that's what we have been doing, and that's what we will continue to do until the next election, and hopefully far after.
Passé aujourd'hui, comment vous avez l'impression que les ministres se tiennent derrière M. Trudeau?
Bien, écoutez, on a eu d'excellentes discussions aujourd'hui, puis comme on le dit depuis le début, toujours en ayant les Canadiens au cœur de nos discussions, puis très unis derrière notre premier ministre.
Est-ce que vous avez adopté une stratégie pour faire face justement aux mutins, comme on les a désignés?
Bien, écoutez, on continue notre travail, puis je peux vous dire qu'on a le meilleur premier ministre pour faire face à la prochaine campagne électorale.
Are you concerned that your new CEO for CBC, are you worried she's not going to get a fair shot, considering what we saw yesterday at the committee from the Conservatives? I know it's kind of a big job to take on, especially with sort of the knives out for the whole kid caboodle. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on, or if you're concerned she's going to get a fair shake.
Yeah, I think she's going to get a fair shake because she's well equipped to be able to deal with the pressure that comes with this title. She knows CBC Radio-Canada in and out, and also she's right now the CEO of an important broadcaster. So I know that the challenge is going to be big, especially in the current context, but I think she's the right person to be able to lead CBC Radio-Canada into this period.
Madame St-Onge, comment vous pensez que M. Trudeau devrait gérer ce qu'on appelle maintenant les mutins, qui semblent vouloir s'adapter?
On va en jaser demain au caucus, mais je peux réitérer que 100% du cabinet est derrière M. Trudeau, puis on va être là pour gagner la prochaine campagne électorale.
Mais comme cabinet, est-ce que vous avez une stratégie?
Globe story about Drouin and Morrison. Do you have any issues with the Globe story saying that Drouin and Morrison had leaked to the Washington Post?
Sorry?
I'm asking you because you're the head of the Queen's Privy Council. That's why I'm asking.
Well, no, sorry. You don't have to keep walking backwards.
No,
It's okay, I'll stop.
I just can't. I can never believe that's.
No, it's fine. No, I do need to get going. But
Yeah.
listen, what the real issue what we need to be talking about is what the RCMP just came out with, right? That's the actual issue that we need to be absolutely focused on, making sure that Canadians feel safe right now. Think about it. I think it's unprecedented that this type of information has come, where the RCMP had to come out to be able to say, we're taking these extraordinary steps to come up with this information to disrupt this type of foreign interference, right? This is actually giving more confidence to the anxiety that Canadians are feeling. And I trust our intelligence agency and all the departments head and the public service to do the right thing, and they have been. And more importantly, one of the things that actually really is upsetting, not just to me, but to a lot of Canadians and my constituents, is that Pierre Poilievre is not willing to get a security clearance to see the information itself. So that's one of the things that we focused on.
And I also got to ask you about the guilty pleas in the Rapudaman Singh Malik murder. Any comment on that?
Well, one is trust the police to actually do their work. And ultimately, we need. It was really odd from what I saw of the news of the two accused and whatever that thing that broke out. And ultimately, the key message we want to say is: listen, when it comes to the Sikh community, this has been going on for 4 decades of feeling of anxiety, seeing stuff that's going on, feeling unsafe as well, the intimidation that has taken place. And we've always said we trust in our police agencies to be able to do their work. And at the same time, regardless of who you are, which community that you're from, if you commit a crime, you are going to be held accountable. And I trust in our justice system and our police forces to do so. And finally, I would say that communities are feeling confident. And at the same time, we're going to make sure that other people are not going to allow our communities to be divided. People choose Canada to come here because of the independence of our judicial system, from our police, from our politicians, and which includes our freedom of the press. And this is something that we do need to protect.
Minister Sajjan,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I came late, so I don't know if you addressed the questions, but how do you think that the Prime Minister should handle the dissent?
You know what? One of the things when I actually got into politics, right? I asked the question to, it was Justin back that time. I said, listen, are you going to allow us to have a voice, right? And are you going to hear our viewpoints out? One of the things I love about our caucus, we can have a very strong conversation, right? Because the Prime Minister has allowed this environment to have tough discussions, and we're having those tough discussions to making sure that every member of Parliament, more importantly, our wider Liberal Party, has a say in the direction that we want to go. But more importantly, one of the things that I'm proud of that. Rather than listening to Conservatives member of Parliament with their continued talking points, and we have a voice. Our voice comes to Ottawa, where their voice, Pierre Poilievre, goes into the ridings.
So help me understand this, though. I mean, it's one thing to say, everybody gets to express an opinion, but when you have 20, possibly 40 MPs disagreeing with the person at the top that he should stay in the top, how do you get past that?
Well,
how does a caucus continue to function if that faction doesn't think the leader should stay?
No,
I don't understand that. Help Canadians understand it.
No, you know what? One of the things is, first of all, when it comes to the numbers and all that stuff, to be honest, I don't know exactly what they are. But what I do know is the Prime Minister allows for a conversation to take place, right? And that's exactly what we've had in the past, and that's what we'll also have to continue. And if there are members of Parliament who need to express that viewpoint, they will have this opportunity, because that's what they want.
Is there a plan
because
to address their concern?
No, their concerns also are about what the constituents also have. My thing is, if my constituents had a concern, they wouldn't want me as a member of Parliament, not as a minister, to be able to come have that conversation. And we're going to have that conversation. We've had it in the past, and that is the beauty of our caucus, because the Prime Minister has allowed this. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have been part of this team or party if that wasn't the case.
You encourage him to stay on?
Absolutely, yeah. And to be, and you know what?
And so what's your message to the people who don't?
You know what? No, my message, I'm not here to convince them. what they need to be able to express their viewpoints. And that's exactly what will either happen tomorrow, and we'll continue to have those discussions. It's not about just convincing. It's about making sure that everybody has an opportunity to express themselves and to have those type of discussions. Yes, I have a viewpoint as well. I'll have discussions with various people like I've always had. But at the end of the day, I'm here to represent the viewpoints of my constituents. I have certain values, why I have chosen this party, why I have chosen this leader to get back behind. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to do this work. And I can tell you, having our voice, our constituents' voice, to be able to come to Ottawa, I know that my constituents really appreciate that. Okay, thank you so much.
What was the cabinet meeting like?
It was a thorough, comprehensive discussion about many policy issues that we have on the table to continue our hard work for Canadians, and that gives me great joy. I love working, and I'm really excited to keep going.
What kind of message did the Prime Minister give to you all today?
We got to keep working hard for Canadians. We got to keep working hard on our respective files. And as you know, the Prime Minister has entrusted me with two large portfolios. And so I got my work cut out for me, and I got to go.
Still behind the Prime Minister?